Ladies and gentlemen, greetings and salutations to you. Kluger welcoming you to another build guide of the Grim Dawn Persuasion. I hope you're all fantastic and well. It's been a little while since I've done one of these and I'm glad to bring another one to you. Today what we are looking at is the dual wielding lightning based Trickster, which is the Shaman and Nightblade masteries. This is a build that I'm enjoying very much, hence I'm bringing this guide to you. One of the first things I did want to address, as you'll notice down the bottom of the screen, is that this character is currently only level 64. So you may think it's a little premature for a build guide, because other YouTubers out there do crank up their guys to 85 as of content completeness. But unfortunately, it's going to take me a long time to do so, and I thought I'd rather get this guide out to you first. So here we are with another build guide. It is functionally complete is the main thing. All but one skill is already selected, and that's just because I don't have the points yet, and it's not an absolute compulsory skill. So without further ado, we'll take a look at that. You should still enjoy this build, despite the fact that it's not max level yet. You guys can take it as far as you want, because basically the skills I've got here is all you really need, and then you can expand further from there at your own discretion. So, taking a look at the Nightblade skill tree first. It's a relatively simple build, as you can see. I've focused on the dual wielding tree in Nightblade. I've only got 1 point in dual blades at the base there. The ones I focused on predominantly are Amarasta's Quick Cut, full 8 out of 8 points there, and 8 out of 8 on Execution, because those are big damage dealing skills. I have put 5 out of 8 in Whirling Death to get the maximum % chance to activate. And then I've kept the Belgothian Shears and Nidalla's Hidden Hand lower for the time being. In fact, I think I've only got 1 point in Nidalla's Hidden Hand, and that's just getting buffs from items. That's just purely for the slowness of it. I suppose the slowness nerf that it puts on your enemies. So yeah, that's just obviously all just focusing on damage, and you know, these offer weapon damage, which work really well with savagery over on the shaman side of things. Now the other things I've picked up from here: 1 point into Ring of Steel with the Ring of Frost modifier. This is just sort of not panic button, but a little bit of crowd control just for the stunnage. If you're in a bit of a pinch, just the 1 point in Shadow Strike, mostly for the mobility and a little bit of extra damage and sort of single target stun when you use it. And then the rest of the points have gone into the Pneumatic Burst line. Full 12 out of 12 there, because of very good healing, and 15% total speed is definitely not something to sneer at. Basically, this is an always on thing. As soon as it cools down, you try to switch it on again once you've taken a little bit of damage, because that's both a DPS buff as well as keeping you alive. Because we're dual wielding as well, we can put our point into Breath of Belgothian, which just helps with the cooldown and health regen. Full 12 out of 12 also in Shadow Dance to help with the survivability side of things, since we don't have a shield. And then currently 6 out of 12 points in Elemental Awakening, because it gives us elemental resistances and elemental damage. This is something you could put a full 12 points into if you have absolutely nothing else to spend it on. It's quite nice, and a nice little extra damage buff and defense. On the Shaman side, it's in fact even simpler. Totally just focusing on the savagery line. So fully maxed savagery. So far 10 out of 12 points in tenacity of the boar. This is kind of sort of at your discretion skill. Basically it gives you offensive and defensive ability, or raw, I suppose, offensive and defensive ability when you switch it on, as well as a bit of health regen there. This depends on how you feel your character's going. If you feel you're lacking a bit in those areas, you can take that, and then I suppose any percentage offensive or defensive ability buffs you have on your gear will help that, and so you get more out of it, as it were. I'm finding it handy being in elite difficulty to help keep that stat up, but again, if you've got uber good gear and you find you don't really need more OA or DA, you can probably avoid putting so many points in that skill. And then Storm Touch, at the moment, I've got 5 out of 12. Again, this is something you can sort of do to your own flavor or your own feeling. I'm using it because I like the attack speed and extra lightning damage, etc. that it's giving us. Now, this is the skill that I'm aiming for once I get this character leveled up further, as I'm working on through my elite difficulty playthrough, which you should check out. Which is just Stormcaller's Pact, which gives us a bunch more crit damage, chance for more lightning damage, all that good stuff. So that's something I'm aiming for as sort of the ultimate end game skill. Now quickly we'll talk about progression, because there's kind of an easy mode way to get this character through the first couple of acts. and that's through savagery. I started with Shaman, and basically I think I went up to Tenacity of the Boar, sort of 2 points in the this bar thing, the Mastery bar, and then popping points into Savagery. I basically got that to maximum as soon as possible, and then you're a little bit in easy mode, because it's just absolutely, it just shreds. It gives you so much damage early game that it makes it quite easy to get through. So once that was maxed, then I started working on the Nightblade tree. Actually, I may have gone into Nightblade a little bit earlier, because getting to Pneumatic Burst is definitely a nice thing to do, because you get the healing and all that sort of stuff, which will help you when you're in a pinch. But yeah, priority 1 for me was Savagery in early game, but then I didn't work on Tenacity of the Boar or Storm Touch until much later. After I got Savagery, my focus was entirely on getting through to full Nightblade Mastery, starting to flesh out the dual wielding tree. Initially I was just sort of popping a point in there and then the odd point here and there, rushing to execution because it's by far the strongest of the dual wielding skills. I popped points into Ring of Steel and Ring of Frost as soon as I could for that crowd control, and it also 1 point into Shadow Strike, because the sooner you get that, the quicker you can sort of dart around the screen and keep yourself alive, as well as killing stuff, of course. But definitely the priority from this tree, at least very early on, is to get Pneumatic Burst. And then as you work your way up, I was actually putting more points just in the base skill first, and slowly working into Shadow Dance a bit later on. So hopefully that helps with progressing this build itself, rather than me just telling you a bunch of skills. We'll go across to the Devotion tree now. Now this is something that I've been doing some thinking about this, but it's really hard to advise on exactly how to approach Devotion due to the sheer magnitude of the thing. A really good bit of advice I got from my buddy Ninetrix, who's a very good Grim Dawn player, is just to mess around with the Devotion tree, basically, because there's... Look, you could do it wrong. You could just go into, say, just all vitality damage when you're a lightning, a lightning build or whatever have you. But if you got a basic idea of where you're trying to get to, it's pretty hard to completely mess up. I've seen different people with different builds doing completely different things or similar things to what I'm doing. So just have a mess around and see what works for you. What I've tended to do in my situation is focus more on the defensive side, because the skills we're choosing from the Nightblade and Shaman Masteries are already very, for the most part, very offensive in nature. Being a dual wielder as well as choosing Savagery, they're already giving us so much DPS that we don't have to necessarily get a bunch of DPS from here. That being said, I've still picked up some, and my ultimate goal at the moment is to work towards Spear of the Heavens, which I'm nearly there, but I need to actually invest a little bit in Chaos. So I'm trying to figure out which skills will be best, which constellations, pardon me, will be best to facilitate that. But it's got a very cool activating skill, Spear of the Heavens, which is a bunch of cool lightning damage and stun and goodness. But as well as that, it gives us a lot of lightning damage and offensive ability, which are two really key options for this build. 5% offensive ability there, and ether resistance, which is a thing that doesn't crop up all that often, as well as crit damage, which is a very nice thing to have. But besides that, I've mostly been focusing on Primordial, as you can see, as well as a little bit of Order. I've picked up things such as Dryad, the Dryad constellation, which gives us some nice buffs, but predominantly the skill Dryad's Blessing, which I've got on my Savagery attack, is pretty much just a heal and buff, which is really awesome. Like I said, for such an offensively minded character, having a nice almost always on heal because of how fast we're attacking is really handy to have. I've put some points into Tsunami, partially to just get up the amount of Primordial we have, but also as a really nice extra damage buff on Shadow Strike, and gives it some crowd control. I've also got Tortoise here, defensive, Sailor's Guide, defensive, and Eel, I believe, is also a little defensive in nature. It is indeed. But I'm picking these up in order as well to get through Primordial so we can work our way up to the top. I've also got Ulo, Keeper of the Waters, again for resistances, trying to be defensive, and the skill again is reasonably nice. Cleansing Waters, which basically cleanses us of debuffs, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not by any means saying this is the right way to do it, but this is working for me for the most part so far. I have considered doing a bit of a rejig into some different skills, but like I said, this is going okay for myself. But yeah, feel free to experiment. There's got to be at least two or three different ways you could break this down and do it, possibly a lot better than I have. But yeah, this is going okay for me so far. We'll talk about attributes and gear as well, of course. Attributes wise, pretty straightforward. I can't tell exactly how I have invested, but it's pretty much kind of been 2 to 1 between physique and spirit, maybe closer to 3 to 1 towards physique, just for the defensive ability and the health and all that good stuff that we get from it. I guess that's all there is to mention there. Spirit, of course, because I am personally focusing on the lightning damage side of things. Gear-wise, your most needed offensive traits are attack speed, and we need attack speed because basically the faster we attack, the faster savagery charges up. Obviously, we want to get it to maximum charge as quickly as possible, because once it's there, we're doing absolute maximum damage because we've got 8 charge levels to work through at this point in time. Of course, the other one is lightning damage. We're doing a lot of lightning damage from here, so flat and percentage lightning damage on things is always really, really good. And that's really it from the offensive side of things. On the defensive side, it's just the sort of stock standard stuff that you'll be needing. Defensive ability, armor rating, resistances, of course, you must keep up, especially as you're working through the later difficulty levels. What I'm also kind of keeping an eye out for as well is gear that gives lightning damage procs or upon attack or upon getting hit skills, because they work really well with this build as well, and it kind of adds a little bit of extra fun and flavor to how the build works. So, for example, do I have any on at the moment? Not really. Just the Chosen Blade, which I believe, has a 5% chance on attack to cast a lightning bolt, and I had some other ones I thought, but maybe I've changed out my gear since. Here we go. The Empowered Lightning Rod has a 10% chance to cast Lightning Nova. And I had some other ones as well, but I have since switched out some of my gear. Here we go. Cerulean Shard also has 10% chance when hit by melee attacks as well. So it's a pretty decent chance for some other attacks to switch on and do nasty stuff. Again, even this is not optimized. I've got Lightning Orb there as well on my belt. But like I said, this is definitely not optimized just yet, as I'm still working through Epic. But the sort of credo of gear selection is still more or less the same. You're looking for lightning damage and attack speed. That's all you really need at this point in time, or at all really. And then, like I said, you're looking for the basic defensive stuff to keep you alive. I've put quite a focus on the defensive side of things where I can. For example, defensive ability on these pants using an ancient armor plate and scaled hide on there as well, but you could easily put like a hallowed ground component on the chest as well if you want to go ultra defensive. And what else can I mention? I've got a runestone as well on the hat, which is a nice defensive thing to have. Like I've been saying the whole time, this is a very offensive build, so focusing on the defensive side with some of your skill and predominantly your gear selection is quite recommended in my opinion. The last thing worth mentioning is 2 ambers on each of my swords, because that gives us a lot of goodness in the lightning damage department. Now, we'll go for a quick run around while we're at it. I've got up to Berwick Village, let's go check that out. Just to give a quick example of how the build plays, but it's not particularly complicated, I suppose is the beauty of it. If you're just looking for something that you can backseat a little bit and just sort of chill out and go kill some stuff, this is what you do. So here we go. Basically the drill is you can either just shadow strike into a pack, or you can be a little bit more deliberate, but basically you go and hit stuff and then you switch on pneumatic burst and then you just keep clicking and let your character attack. There's not too much else to it. I've got Empowered Lightning Nova down here on my bar as well, which comes from the Ambers, which is a nice AoE to have handy. And I've also got Abolish Evil, and I can't remember where that comes from. It comes from the Glory of the Silver Knight hat, which is not going to be a permanent thing. But I was finding it handy to kill certain like heroes and bosses of an ethereal or chthonic nature. So that was a cool thing to have. But that's basically the drill. I just hop in there, and then I hit my AoE attacks, e.g. Empowered Lightning Nova and Ring of Steel. I'm spamming pneumatic burst as often as it becomes available. And that's essentially it. You want to make sure you try and keep on the move. Don't try to bite off too much at once, because you can get overwhelmed in really, really large packs if your passive dual-wielding procs aren't on your side, for example, or if Ring of Steel's on cooldown and you're getting a bit nailed, then you're not going to have a very good time. But there's not much else to show you. There's not really any other tricks to the way you play this build. You just kind of go in and have a good time. It's not particularly complicated by any stretch. Generally speaking, I'll try to time my Ring of Steel until I've got a decent group around me to immobilize as many as possible. But look, that's another thing that's just sort of to flavor and whatever works best for you. So, guys, I think that's really all I need to show you. I hope you did enjoy this build guide. It's a little bit of a different format to my previous ones. It's a little more freeform and a little more casual. And all in one take, actually, which I've never done before. So go Kluger! But on that note, ladies and gents, I hope you found this build guide helpful. Please do leave any questions or comments below. I'm always happy to help, especially with the progression beyond level 64 if you have any questions. And I hope to see you next time. So, everybody, my name is Kluger. You have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you soon.